Good morning and welcome to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition press conference for May 9th, 2023. Allow me to introduce my panel today. From my right, there is none other than
Unmute your mic, please. Unmute.
Welcome to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition press conference for May 9th, 2023. Allow me to introduce my panel from my right. Of course, with us today is none other than the leader of the opposition and the People's National Congress Reform, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament, and to his right, Mr. Elson Lowe, economist. Today's press statement will be read by the leader of the opposition.
Good morning. Barra Jagdeo and the PPP are unpatriotic with their fabricated unlimited insurance. Permits us in the opposition to praise and welcome the activism of civil society in taking legal action against the government for violating our laws, as we note that Barra Jagdeo has removed all semblance of patriotism and is willing to fabricate issues to be able to sell our national patrimony. The government must understand that you can welcome investment and pursue the interests of the people of Guyana at the same time. The two are not mutually exclusive. It is worrying that the second vice president is intervening into the judicial realm and uttering unwarranted comments such as judges should make predictable decisions. The role of the judge is to follow the law. Their response to the ruling is a clear indication that Jagdeo and the PPP do not believe in the rule of law and democracy. They practice authoritarianism, if not dictatorship. It is amazing that Jagdeo, who purports to be intelligent, does not know the difference between insurance coverage and unlimited parent company guarantee agreement. In a parent company guarantee agreement, there is nothing about calculating and paying premium as he contends. It is about the parent company, ExxonMobil, guaranteeing it will cover the cost over and above the insured value if a spill or other disaster occurs. It is foolhardy and deceitful for Jagdeo to be talking about calculation of premium when there is no need to do that. It is a mere guarantee that the parent company will cover the cost over and above the insured value. The legal requirement as written into the permit mandates that ExxonMobil covers any and all costs for the cleanup and restoration in the event of an oil spill. If EEPGL fails to do so or cannot afford to do so due to its limited resources. Unfortunately, Jagdeo comes over as dumb, insane, uncaring, or just a bare-faced fabricator who develops his own narrative to browbeat the people of Guyana. We will not be browbeaten. Jagdeo cannot be trusted. He is unfit to manage anything in Guyana and should resign. This is even more so when we note the allegations of bribery and corruption that are leveled against him by Sue in the Vice News documentary. The ruling had nothing to do with Jagdeo's trumped-up unlimited insurance. It is about parent company guarantee agreement. Appealing this case is a waste of taxpayers' money by the PPP and Jagdeo. To appeal this case is to appeal against our own environmental laws and against the safety and health of our people. It is selfish and a manifestation that they don't care a damn about the people of Guyana. To appeal this case is further confirmation that Jagdeo and the PPP serve only their elite, friends, families, and favorites. Barra Jagdeo and the PPP are urged not to appeal this ruling, which promotes and protects the interests of the people of Guyana. Should they appeal this ruling, there is no doubt that they are anti-people. They are an anti-people regime and unpatriotic. Thank you.
Thank you. So today we will be taking questions on the press statement, and as customary, you do so by the raise of hand and providing your vote entry. The floor is now open for questions. Adam Harris.
A very good morning, everybody. Comrade Leader, I noticed Jagdeo vex when I call the comrade leader. He telling me something about Once I say come leader, I expose myself as PNC. I can't become a general secretary and they say nothing. That's beside the point. Now we talk about this proposed legal action against a judge's decision. This is an issue that has been debated. But sir, with the courts having paved the way for any Guyanese to file legal action against Exxon, has the party been mobilizing its people in this direction, that there are issues that should be challenged and could be challenged?
The party's view is that one, Exxon is making a contribution to Guyana and that we welcome the investment. We, however, believe that all entities, not Exxon alone, should operate within the confines of the law. And as a party, we will work with anybody, any group that seeks to ensure that all and sundry in Guyana comply with the law. And in that regard, I don't think there's need for us to mobilize anyone. Our people are always mobilized. It's for us to act at the appropriate time. We also believe that, unlike Barra Jack during the PPP, there's a place and a space for civil society. And it is not our intention to seek to occupy all political space, for we cannot. But we will, as we said, welcome and support civil society on issues like these. Because we believe that there is a place in the society for civil society and for these approaches, we will work with civil society, but we will not seek to monopolize every bit of space. And so while we will be always mobilized and ready to take action, there are cases where we will support action as such as this one.
Thank you.
Quick follow-up, sir. And when you talk about supporting action, let's say this matter goes to the appeal court. And of course, it was filed by ordinary people I know. And there is a ruling that could counter Justice Kissoon's ruling, and the matter needs to go to the CCJ. Is the party prepared to back those people going all the way to the CCJ, sir?
We are prepared to back people. We are prepared to ensure that Guyanese take all the legal action. But we hope that good sense will prevail and that the PPP wouldn't appeal this decision. I'm convinced that wherever it goes, the ruling will be in favor of the plaintiffs, in the sense that they are on the right side of the law.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I might as well continue, you know, by the time the rest get themselves in order.
Go ahead.
There was Dr. Vince Adams, who had a lot of stuff going, and he said, among other things, this government is actually changing itself. Has the party been in contact with Dr. Vince Adams on this decision? Have you been talking with other like-minded people, for example, people in the Alliance for Change, who have been criticizing the government's decision to challenge Justice Kissoon's ruling?
May I first of all disclose that Vincent Adams and I are from the same area. We went to school. He's much older than me, but we went to school together. We have had a long relationship. And yes, I'm in contact with Vincent Adams over the years and at present. We are in discussion and talking with people from all categories of life. So we believe that we need to be in contact with those people, have an understanding of their position, and then work together with them to achieve our objectives.
And has Exxon reached out to you? Generally, Exxon has been known to campus support when things get a bit dicey. Has Exxon reached out to your party, sir?
Not on this issue as far as I know.
Any issue at all that you would share?
We have an agreement, a kind of an understanding that we need to reach out, and whenever we feel the need to, we will reach out.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. With no other hands raised here, I do believe that this will bring us to the end. Oh, sorry. Ms. Davina Kaichorno.
I'm sorry to thing, but there are questions I would like to ask outside of the statement. That's why I was kind of waiting. There are questions. But...
Ms. Davina?
Thank you. I'd just like to follow up on what the opposition leader just said about reaching out to Exxon.
I think your audio is giving a bit of an issue, Ms. Davina, because we're not hearing you currently.
Thanks.
Ms. Davina, we didn't hear the question because for a moment your sound was blank.
Oh, my apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
All right. So my question is to the opposition leader. I was just following up on what he said in response to Mr. Adam Harris's question regarding reaching out to Exxon and so on. I would like to know what exactly those meetings are intended to, like, what is the purpose? What are you intending to achieve? Have you reached out to Exxon? Have they reached out to you in the past? And what, on what subjects?
Well, if you listen to what I said that we do have a kind of agreement that if we need to meet out, we'll meet out. But on this occasion, we didn't meet on any issue.
Sir, so have you met in the past to discuss what subject?
We met a while back and we discussed generally the issues surrounding oil and gas in Guyana, and that's a while back.
Okay, and can you explain, just give me an idea as to what the expected outcomes are? I mean, is it to garner support? What is it exactly? What are these meetings intended to do?
I can only tell you if we meet in, the intention for me would be to promote the interests of our people, to listen to Exxon concerns, to be responsive where there's need for responsiveness. But as far as I know, the laws of Guyana would have made it very clear that our task is to pursue the interests of the people of Guyana and ensure the people of Guyana get the best benefits from our oil and gas industry.
I'm sorry if I missed it before, but can you just remind me of what was the subject of your last meeting with Exxon and when this took place?
I think we met a while back. We haven't met for this year, and it was a very general meeting, like I said before.
I'm really trying to understand what was the purpose of the meeting, like what you guys discussed. I mean, you said benefits, but I'm trying to understand in what area exactly. If you can just please help me understand.
I did say when the question was asked that the last time we met, it was a very general meeting. We discussed generally oil and gas, and basically we had outlined our position to Exxon, and the position is we are obligated by the laws of Guyana to pursue the interests of the people of Guyana, and we are committed to do that. However, we are well disposed to listening to their position and talking about it with the aim of ensuring at the end of the day, whatever happens in the oil and gas sector is in the interest of the people of Guyana.
Thank you, sir. Are you taking questions off of the press statement?
Shanika, before...
Davina, sorry, just one quick question on this oil and gas. Just one, and then I'm going to shut up. You have been talking with Exxon, even as Exxon has been releasing funds for certain constructions, like I understand they're funding the construction of some stadium in Belize. This is not money, I think, that's going to be passed through the consolidated fund. Were you made aware of such a contribution by Exxon to the state?
What I read in the press, but I had no direct discussion with Exxon on what they're doing in terms of any construction.
All right, just on the question by Ms. Divina, today's press conference is geared towards the statement that we presented today. We will have our regular press conference on Thursday where we'll be able to take questions on any other subject lines. But today we want to stick to the issue of this matter.
Yeah, Shanika, just if I can make a quick note.
Go ahead.
One point that sometimes is not doesn't come across or isn't as clear is that the language regarding a parent company guarantee and the intentions behind it, really it is the coalition that originally put forward that language. Dr. Vincent Adams is the one who put that forward, and really that language is the language that has been carried forward regarding the various in the various permits. It is not, and I think the evidence shows that the PPP never really had any intention of having that level of coverage of ensuring that oil and gas companies are responsible when it comes to these offshore operations. The language is language that came from the coalition, and really it indicates the commitment that the coalition has towards ensuring that Guyana's environment is protected going forward.
I have no objection to taking questions outside of the.
So you'll take, okay. All right. I see the hand of, well, I'll take Mr. Mika Garnett after Javon Vickery since he had requested to ask the question before. Mr. Vickery.
Good afternoon, Javon Vickery, Guyana Standard. I have two questions. The first question is, yesterday we saw the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana making statements with regards to losing about $1 trillion in graduates who are leaving Guyana and going abroad. The question is, what is the opposition's strategy or policy for effectively addressing the loss of graduates that we're seeing, given what was said yesterday by Dr. Mohammed? That's the first question.
First of all, the data will show that there is always increased migration when the PP is in government. I don't know why, I've never investigated it, but the data will show that if you go to the US website and you see the amount of migration. Now, I believe that there are a number of things that need to be done to stem the flow of migration. One of them is to ensure that there are jobs for the migrants. In my budget presentation, for the graduates who will migrate. In my budget presentation, I did point out that a lot of these graduates could be used in the form of think tanks to be able to do research and provide empirical data for the development of Guyana. And so that is one of the things we are likely to do, create the opportunity for far more research, etc. We also believe that once we implement our people-centered development, which in fact will result in more income in the pockets of our people, our what we call minimum livable income approach will contribute to ensuring that a lot of our people stay in Guyana. We also need to do a number of things. We need to really do a proper survey of the jobs that are needed in Guyana and ensure that the university is structured to satisfy those jobs, and not just a case where people go to the university and then when they come out, there's no relationship between the graduate and the jobs that are needed. So there is need for that survey, and then there is need for us to reorganize our training in a way that it satisfies the market. And so things like that we will do. It also has to do with giving people hope. People must have hope that the society will turn around and that they can live in a safe environment. One of the things that pushes migration while the PP is in government is the continuous violation of the rule of law, the shift towards authoritarianism. As a government, we will promote democracy. We will not politicize the police force and use them against people. People's freedom will be protected. And so in that circumstance, graduates are more likely to stay and work in Guyana. And I do believe that side by side with that, we need some specific training programs to target our graduates and make them feel comfortable that being at home is the best thing and that there are opportunities for them.
I just want to add to that as well that what an indictment of the government that we're still talking about people leaving Guyana, despite Guyana having the fastest growth rate in the world for several years. That is if that is not an indictment of the government's performance, I don't know what is. But in addition to that, really it's going to be night and day when it comes to university graduates and the University of Guyana when we're in office, because we believe, as the leader has said in his budget speech as well, that the University of Guyana should be one of the best institutions in the world when it comes to oil and gas matters and many other matters, that we should properly fund the university so that graduates have the type of high quality education that they could receive at the best universities in the world, and that we have to aim higher. We have, again, we always say this, the second most barrels of oil per person in the entire world. Our university should be invested in, and our graduates should be invested in, so that they can be great successes, and in their success, bring success to Guyana. Of course, there will always be people who will look to migrate, but really we should ensure that everyone who is graduating from the university feels happy to stay in Guyana, feels that they'll be fulfilled to stay in Guyana. And what the leader is talking about there in terms of ensuring that university graduates have good jobs is quite vital, because a lot of university graduates have complained that they don't have good jobs. But even right now, we're saying that university graduates should be receiving that university attendees should be receiving a student stipend to help them make it through university, to deal with some of the expenses that come from studying. So it's going to be night and day when it comes to the University of Guyana, and we're going to ensure that every graduate feels happy about working and living in Guyana.
I think in addition, it should be pointed out that while GOAL exists, what it does is put resources in other institutions rather than the University of Guyana. I think we need to concentrate more on putting resources in the University of Guyana. We need to improve the research capacity, because when a student finishes a first degree, the university must be so equipped that they can go on to a master's, and we should be planning in such a way that we are bringing home to Guyana and developing right here persons who are going to pursue their doctorate and become professors, so that the university has the academic capabilities to improve its performance at every level. And so one of the fundamental problems is that the government does not fund the university properly. They seem not to think much about the university, or we will have a totally different approach to the university. We will see the university as an important institution. Side by side with the university is the Institute of Applied Science and Technology, which should also be beefed up in this circumstance. And given the kind of resources that they become involved in research that can lead to other developments. We're talking about trying to get cheap electricity, but in this country, we have a lot of clay that we can probably set up a tile factory and produce our own tiles, clay bricks. There are a number of things we can do. And if the Institute of Applied Science and Technology is used to do research and to come up with proper solutions, etc., from a technical and scientific standpoint, then I believe we'll be in a far better position to keep our graduates, because the very Institute of Applied Science and Technology will become one of the places that attract graduates. Also, we have to improve on the question of developing entrepreneurs through small and micro businesses. We also have got to engage our university students and let them understand the importance of being in business, and that when you get a degree, you don't necessarily have to work in a public service or work somewhere. You can become an entrepreneur and push the development of your country.
Thank you. I see.
Just to follow, just to follow up, and I had another question. So you're saying, Mr. Norton, with regards to the goals, scholarship, are you saying that money which is being invested into that program should be invested into local universities, the University of Guyana, and other programs? That's one, and I'll ask my final question to finish with it. What approach should be taken, sir, to effectively address recent cases of assault on cops? What do you believe is the root cause of this? Because we've been seeing it over and over from recently, and it's been happening last year and sometime this year. What do you think could be the root causes of those things? That's it for me.
First of all, let me start with goal. Goal doesn't come over to me as satisfying the needs of the people of Guyana. And if it does, it's minimal. There's probably need for an assessment of what goal would have achieved and not achieved. That's the first thing. The second thing is, whether there is goal or not, we should be investing in the University of Guyana because it is our premier institution, and with human resource development being the key to the advancement of the country, then they should put the resources there and allow the University of Guyana to advance. As it relates to the assault on policemen, it's really a manifestation of the breakdown of the rule of law in Guyana and the lawlessness that operates under the PPP. I've consistently pointed out that the PPP recruits a lot of persons who are in conflict with the law in Linden, in Buxton, you can name it. It is that creation of that environment that is conducive to lawlessness that would have resulted in the situation when a man could say in the public domain, I'm a killer. If I had my gun here, what would have happened? And this man is affiliated to the PPP in Buxton. And we have made the point regularly that the PPP is not recruiting from these communities people who are decent, development-oriented. They have a penchant for finding those in conflict with the law. I think that is one factor that contributes. And then if you have a situation where there are allegations of bribery and corruption against a vice president, and then the police can't do anything about it, then people lose respect for the police. One of the problems we face is that the government has politicized the police force and treated them in such a way that now ordinary citizens and the people who are linked to the PPP operate in such a way. We had a case where a PPP activist bit a policeman. And when one believed that that activist will face action, the policeman was transferred. So what you did there is to signal to your people running wild in the streets that, look, you could do policemen anything and get away with it once you are close to the People's Progressive Party. And mind you, if you have a president that has had 19 fraud charges not taken through the court, but just arbitrarily dismissed, you send the signal that lawlessness is acceptable. Being in conflict with the law is acceptable. And so the other thing is that when we look at the Criminal Investigation Department, and I made this point on many occasions, if you remove the capacity of that department to investigate crimes, you're virtually signaling to people you can commit a crime, and the probability of you not being prosecuted is extremely high, and that will also lead to crime. I must also add that sometimes our policemen step over the line. But even if they do, they should not be assaulted. There should be a respect for the law. But to the extent that you do not have avenues to ensure there is redress when policemen, rogue ones, not bad, but there are many decent policemen who do their work, but when the rogue ones transcend the law, then you will have problems. And then in the police force, there are many reports that junior people in the police force who have links with the People's Progressive Party are overriding senior ranks. And that also contributes to a breakdown of the line of command in the Ghana Police Force. I mean, yesterday when it was said that the perpetrator of that act that you were talking about was charged, people were trying to find out, well, like the government didn't get to intervene in quick time, or somebody in the police force didn't bother with them and proceeded to enforce the law. The problem is there is not the uniform enforcement of the law. The government has politicized law enforcement. There is selective use of the law. And we just finished, or we are still dealing with the situation where PPP people committed forgery, fraud, and under the law passed by the very PPP regime, those are offenses and should be prosecuted. The police commissioner and the Ghana Police Force failed to act, which leaves us with another option which we have to take. But if in a society people are satisfied that once they have political coverage, they can violate the law, then policemen will be disrespected. And the things that are happening to policemen will happen. If you saw the picture that was posted by some Guyanese, the man who is accused of assaulting the police and seeking to flee, he was standing proudly behind Minister Charles Ramson in a meeting, you know. So it is evident he felt he had the cover of the People's Progressive Party and therefore is inclined to act in such a way. I'm waiting on a report from Berbice about similar activities in New Amsterdam recently, and we report on that.
Thank you. Ms. Tamika Garnett.
Good morning, everyone. Tamika Garnett, Ghana Chronicle. Mr. Martin mentioned that he had a meeting with Exxon. Mr. Martin, can you say if in your meeting, did you indicate to the company your party's plan to renegotiate their PSA if your party assumes government? And if so, can you say what that discussion was like?
We had no discussion on that issue.
Is there a particular reason you didn't discuss with the company your party's plans to renegotiate the PSA if you get into government?
We have already said that our party's approach is to ensure that the people of Guyana benefit from our oil and gas sector, and whatever is required to ensure that our people benefit, we have made it very public here and all around that we will do it.
Thank you. I see the hand of Ms.
I wasn't finished. I have two more questions. Yesterday in the Public Accounts Committee meeting, the committee dealt with matters on the former Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, where it was documented that in several cases across a number of years, that ministry signed contracts with contractors prior to the contract being awarded by the relevant awarding authority. Given how this affects the accountability of the APNU, Mrs. Martin, can you say what are your thoughts on this situation having occurred and what you would say on how the party will ensure such flouting of procurement procedures are not done in the future under your party?
First of all, I didn't hear about that. But may I say this to you? From the time I know the People's Progressive Party in government, that has been a normal practice. And there are a number of Auditor General reports that reprimanded the PPP for that kind of behavior. I don't know of the specific case, but what I can say to you, a government led by us will be a government that is accountable, is transparent, and things like that we will seek to root out. It's not an event, it's a process. There are still public servants who sometimes become involved in those activities, but I believe it is the responsibility of the minister in terms of giving political direction to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you.
Another question. A few weeks ago, APNU Councillor Tritria Richards, who is now running for the PPP, reported that she was being harassed by a specific APNU councillor. She noted that she had also been harassed by several other APNU councillors. She eventually made a report against one of the councillors. As we head into local government elections, have you or the party as a whole spoken to party members and supporters about a code of conduct or their need to refrain from harassing members of any opposing party or entity?
First of all, I don't know of us harassing anyone, but I can give you evidence of PPP activists in Linden harassing our people. There is a woman in Kanji that supports our party that the PPP harasses every day, including pelting her house. There are many people in PPP areas. One person from Linden can tell you about the things that some of the PPP people are doing in Linden. Of course, when it is confronted, it will go down. The APNU have been harassing them. But the People's Progressive Party lives a life of harassment. If you have to take 10 days workers and force them to go to your activities, then you are harassing people. If you have to go and tell people that they get in a scholarship, etc., and cause them to sign on a document, and then it turn up that they signed for the PPP, that is harassment. The People's Progressive Party is an authoritarian regime that harasses our people in every sense. This position of seeking to accuse of as harassment emerged after Barra Jackdale put out, I don't know if it's an advisory or a diktat to the Ghana Police Force and the people. It said essentially that, look, if you're harassed by people from the APNU, you should report it to the police and then it will be dealt with. Once you saw that, you know that nobody from the APNU had to harass people, they will be sent to say that they were harassed. I wouldn't comment on Trisha Richards. The people in that area, when they vote, will deal with her and deal with her condignly.
All right.
So are you saying what are you saying essentially, that if someone is faced with harassment from an APNU member, is there do you have anything to say to those persons on what they can do if they are harassed by an APNU member?
Well, first of all, APNU members aren't harassing anybody, so I don't have to tell you what we will do. When we speak to our comrades, and say to them, you campaign for a party. The PPP is a government that has given us all the ammunition to campaign. You don't have to harass anybody. All you have to do is campaign on the facts. If the PPP tells people, including Warner Jill, that look, if you want a street bill, you have to support the PPP. When we campaign and we point out to people that this is wrong, that our people are entitled to have their road bills built because they pay taxes. Now, if the PPP is using that as a condition, again, they are harassing our people. All I will say to you here is that we have an organized, structured campaign in which we will deal with the issues, identify the shortcomings of this government that has oil money and our people are living in poverty. They can't deal with the high cost of living. They're mismanaging our country. We don't have any need to harass anyone. We just need to put the facts out there. Why do you need to harass anybody when your Vice President Barra Jackdaw know that there is nothing in this thing about unlimited insurance, and sought to shift it and raise this as an issue as if it is an issue when it isn't? It's just an attempt to browbeat the people of Guyana. Look, the facts on our side, and we don't need to harass anyone. In fact, we are fighting harassment. The fact that every time Carol Joseph Smith discovers something from the PPP, they bring Trump up a charge against her. What is more harassment than that? What is more harassment than the charges you would have brought against Patterson and can't prove it? What is more harassment than the charges that were brought against Winston Jordan and cannot be proven? Look, when it comes to harassment, the People's Progressive Party is the apex of harassers. So I think what we need to be doing is focusing on how we protect our people against PPP harassment, domination, and dictatorship.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Mark Benchcott.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
And I thank you guys for accepting individuals who can ask straightforward questions at your press conference. And I say that before I ask my question that I took umbrage when Barra Jackdaw is going to dictate who's a journalist and who's a reporter. No one tells him who to access into his press conferences, and most of them do ask soft questions. And now here are my questions. One, pertaining to the harassment of APNU PNC supporters and APNU AFC supporters, I have seen evidence where a few who have jumped over into the PPP scandal are using whatever influence they may have been given by Barra Jackdaw to harass individuals in New Amsterdam. I have seen a video circulating where a former PNC person is basically boasting and bragging that they will call VJ, get in touch with the police. So if people need evidence of the PPP supporters harassing APNU PNC folks, maybe they should take a look at that video. How do you feel, assuming that you may have watched or may have seen the video or gotten reports of PPP operatives harassing and are using the police to go after APNU PNC supporters? That's one of my questions as to how you feel about that. The second question is about the visit of a U.S. official to Guyana, and that is Assistant Secretary Pyatt. Have you guys been in touch, or has the embassy been in touch to arrange and to see whether there will be a courtesy call by this official? Those are my two questions.
But first, let me answer the first one last. So far, there has been no contact as far as I know. That is, as it relates to harassment, I saw the video. I am sympathetic to Comrade Barbara Pilgrim. I heard her talking about she will call BJ. When you prostitute yourself, you will always be used. And what we're seeing is most of the persons who politically prostitute themselves being used by Barra Jackdaw to achieve his own ends. And so we anticipated it and we'll deal with it. In this case today, I've spoken with the persons in New Amsterdam and say the young man must get a lawyer and deal with the issue because apparently Barra Jackdaw allegedly instructed that the police charge him. They said they will charge him and put him before the courts. We'll be in full defense of him. And we know that it is harassment. We know it is directed and dictated by the PPP, especially Barra Jackdaw. And so we anticipate it, we prepare for it, and we'll deal with it. The harassment is widespread, and that is because the PPP believes they can use the police force and harass our supporters. Our supporters are encouraged to be steadfast. Our supporters are aware that we will give them all the support that is needed and that we are working assiduously to beat them in those constituencies.
Thank you. All right. I see the hand of Mr. Adam Harris.
Thank you. Leader, two quick questions. One, the position of deputy speaker is up in the air. Has the party identified someone it would nominate for that position, sir? And the last one I would ask, we had the largest budget ever, a record-breaking budget. But the government has gone back to the Natural Resource Fund for additional $30 billion. What message is this sending to the people of Guyana? And how does the opposition view this?
First of all, on your first question, we have identified someone to be the deputy speaker, but we're not prepared to disclose the name of the person at this time. But amongst the members of parliament, we've sat and we have agreed on this. And this is both APNU and AFC. First thing. Your second question is on
The
Supplemental
33
budget.
billion, the supplemental.
first of all, it's a manifestation of the fact that the People's Progressive Party doesn't budget properly. If you, in under 6 months, have got to come back to the parliament for additional funds when you should have budgeted properly, it's an indication that they don't budget properly. The second thing, it's an indication that they are incompetent. And the third thing, it is an indication that they are going after the resources to ensure they accumulate as much as they think they can, because I think they believe that they wouldn't be in government past 2025.
Great, thank you. Mr. Mark Benchcock.
Yeah, sorry, I have a final question or so. Concerned about the happenings out in Linden, where operatives of the PPP are and known individuals, individuals who are known to police locally and maybe in other jurisdictions, are intimidating Lindeners who are free enough to walk around and support the PNC. And again, I am asking whether you, as leader of the party and as leader of the opposition, is focusing in those areas in terms of harassment. And the other, I have noticed that there has been an exchange of words between yourself and the Kashif and Shanghai organization, where I have seen a flyer that says cancel. Can you explain that a little more, please, sir?
Well, first of all, let me say that in Linden, we are not afraid of the PPP. We have been exercising restraint. We think what they are seeking to do is to harass us with the hope that we will lose our cool and they will get whatever little benefits they can get from that kind of activity. Our intention is to be steadfast, focused, firm, and ensure that we're not provoked. However, the PPP should know if Linden is provoked, they will be sorry. There's not much I want to say about Kashif and Shanghai. They put out a document which suggested that Lindeners were rejecting Norton's race baiting. There was no race baiting in Linden. We have not been speaking to the issue of race when we are dealing with any community. We have identified the discrimination against African Guyanese. We have identified it, and we believe we have a right to do that. That is not race baiting. And I proceeded to point out that if any race baiting occurred in Linden, it is the night at a function I went to in which Shanghai, who I know since we were growing up, came to me. And he said to me, look, whatever it is, first and foremost, we are Black people. And I didn't respond. I left it like that. So when they put out this thing about race baiting, I responded saying that if any race baiting occur, it is from the Kashif and Shanghai organization. Now, in Linden, it is well known that the Kashif and Shanghai organization focuses on money, and that they're with the PPP to get money. In the post, I did make it clear that it is a kind of a continuation of the style of the PPP. One of the persons in the Kashif and Shanghai thing is a fugitive from justice. That was pointed out. We saw the second one as can't help in himself. And then there is also a lot of other cases related to illegality that surrounds them. And therefore, we don't see them as a threat or anything of that sort. And all the thing of cancel said was essentially, in the minds of the people of Linden, these trees are canceled out.
Finally, Mr. Norton, concerning the almost $300 million given to the same names mentioned, Kashif and Shanghai, and others for a school to be built. It's approaching almost 3 years and nothing is yet. Nothing at all, a waste of taxpayers' money. Your take on that? And then I have a question to Mr. Lowe concerning the additional $41.6 billion withdrawal from the oil fund. I need Mr. Lowe's position on that, and also where is the $214 million? Has the PPP discovered that, Mr. Lowe?
All right, let me deal with the first one that was asked. I mean, the school is a manifestation that the PPP doesn't govern in a proper way. They don't believe in good governance. They believe in giving everything to their friends, their families, and the favorites. In this case, that group is a favorite, and so they got it, but they lack the technical and other competence. In fact, I heard a laughable explanation that they can't get sun when Linden has more sun than virtually anywhere else. But the PPP isn't focused on the development of our people. Unfortunately, the children will suffer because they will be in crowded classrooms, etc. And that school would have helped to improve the situation. But for the PPP, what matters is not the building of the school. Is two things I think matter. One, the appearance that they're doing something. And then I'm hearing in the grapevine that Jack Doe is alleged to be saying, well, they can't say we can give them nothing. We give them, we know they can fail because they ain't got the technical and other capabilities to deliver on the school. So it also appears to be a plot on the part of the PPP to make some of the people who support them and they want to make fail. And so they gave them a project that is way above their ability to handle, and they didn't give them the requisite support so that they could handle it. And so they are failing, and probably the PPP has killed two birds with one stone.
Thank you very much for the question, Mark. Now, I actually think these issues are a bit related because as you speak about a withdrawal from the NRF, anytime we see the government spend Guyana's revenues from the oil and gas industry, one of the concerns we always raise is that the government pays little attention, has no interest in ensuring that money is spent well, that we have value for money, and that projects are actually conducted in the way that they should be conducted. Now, this project regarding the $300 million school is a perfect example. When this contract was first awarded, there was furor, and many people raised the question as to whether a company without the requisite experience should have access to such a large contract. I mean, $300 million is a lot of money. Now, every time we therefore see the government preparing to spend additional oil revenues, and of course they've made it clear that they're going to spend these monies on infrastructure. Of course, building of a school is an example of infrastructure. We believe, of course, that infrastructure is important, but we believe that the money must be spent in a way to give the Guyanese people value for the money that is being spent. There is no point in allocating hundreds of millions of dollars and not being able to come up with what it is that we were supposedly spending all this money on. And so this is a microcosm of the broader problem across the country, which is where huge amounts of money are being dumped into the system without Guyanese actually seeing the benefit, at the very least in terms of infrastructure, but without Guyanese seeing the benefits in terms of their standard of living, even though we're going through a very difficult cost of living crisis right now. Now, the other side of that, this is to follow up with your other question, the $214 million US that was indicated is available for the country, or could be available for the country to recover from the first audit. We've not seen the government make any additional statements on this. This is again a very serious matter because that is $214 million US that could be used to better the lives of the average Guyanese. That is 214 million US that could be used to ease the cost of living crisis. That is 214 million US that could be used to provide schools, just as we're talking about the school that has not been provided. The government, as we've already indicated, that if it was up to them, they would never audit the offshore expenses, the oil and gas expenses that we face in Guyana. They would never check. They'd be happy to let those audits sit, and if it was up to them, they'd hide the results of any audit rather than looking to recover those funds and put them to use in service of the people of Guyana. So we'll continue to apply pressure to them to do audits, first of all. Second of all, to do audits on time. And third of all, not to hide the results of the audits. And we've said and we'll continue to say it should be a criminal offense not to be auditing these companies, and it should be a criminal offense to be hiding these audits, because that is 214 million US now. But over the life of the oil and gas industry, over the life of our offshore operations, you're talking about tens of billions of US that will not be available to the Guyanese public to ensure that our country is better.
All right, thank you. I see we have two other questions here. I'll take these two. Ms. Davina.
Thank you. My question was actually concerning the withdrawal from the NRF. Mr. Norton, we heard that the government withdrew an additional US 200 million from the fund. Are you concerned that the nation is yet to be privy to the details regarding the use of these funds directly from the investment committee that was appointed by President Ali?
I didn't get a question. What about the investment committee?
I'm asking if you're concerned that the nation is yet to know exactly how these funds are being spent, given that we haven't heard from the investment committee that was appointed by President Ali.
All Guyanese should be concerned. We believe that there should be proper oversight and that our withdrawals and spending should be carefully monitored. We, however, acknowledge the fact that the government has no interest in a transparent and accountable approach. And so we are concerned, and when it comes to the parliament, we are already prepared to raise questions to be able to highlight to the people of Guyana what is happening in terms of the oil and gas sector and the utilization of the resources from it.
Sir, are you saying that you're going to be pushing in Parliament for the government to say exactly how these monies are being spent?
For the two supplementary papers that they bring, we'll question them and seek to get the details. And we have some wider activities that are going to come on stream that will allow us to question them. However, the problem when you question the government is that they are very arrogant, and a lot of time they don't give the information that should be given. But we think we are obligated to ask the questions.
I got you. I think that supplemental paper though refers to monies that government wants to withdraw that they earn from carbon credits, and that's going to go into specific projects. But I'm speaking about the NRF, funds being withdrawn from the NRF. What I'd like to know is if you're going to be asking government to show the nation exactly how each cent is being put to use from that fund.
Yes, we're going to ask the questions to ensure that they state it. But like I said to you, we have had many cases where we ask questions and the government, because they cannot afford to be transparent and accountable, they tend not to give the answers that are needed. But we will pursue it.
All right, thank you. I will take the final question from Mr. Mark Benchcott.
Hi, thank you, ma'am. And it is indeed a final question. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs, it's quite obvious that he wants to quiet that down. Any move on the part of the opposition to have that not being swept under the rug. And pertaining to that, Mr. Norton, are you aware, or I'm not sure if your intelligence may have briefed you with regards to the revocation of top government officials' visas, including some members of the Guyana Police Force as well?
Well, I have some information at my disposal. There's a tendency when I get information to double check and ensure that it is correct. We know that the government wants to sweep on, in fact, they've already attempted to sweep it under the table, under this carpet, as a matter of fact, because of things passing under the table. And so we will have to consistently keep this in the public domain, like we keep Sugate in the public domain, by pointing out regularly that the police should investigate. As it relates to the revocation of visas, etc., that has always been a characteristic of the PPP government. The PPP government is always linked to illegalities and will always be in conflict with democracies in the world, because a lot of what they do are not in keeping with democratic principles and traditions. And so they will be in conflict because they are authoritarian in nature.
All right, thank you so much. And with that, we want to thank all our media personnel for joining today, and those viewing us on the social media platforms. Do have a wonderful afternoon.